I truly think that overconsumption is ruining our lives, most of our lives, because most of us are overconsuming. But today I don't want to dive deeper into how that is and why that is, but more so really focus on how to fix it. Because I think there are a lot of good video essays on the ridiculous ways of overconsuming. Today, let's talk about the other side. And I think looking at it from a surface level or also from the outside, it's very obvious: buy less crap. But of course, it's not that simple. So I do want to talk a bit more about how that works, how that has been working in my life also, because I've been buying less and living a minimalist and sustainable lifestyle for almost 10 years, buying less also maybe more so for the past 5 years. And I still sometimes struggle with it, but I'm also finding solutions and learning new things. And I would say I'm pretty content with where I'm at right now, and I'm able to live a life that I really enjoy on a pretty small budget. And I really want that for you too, especially nowadays where stuff is expensive. And with the world in general, we want to maybe have a good life and a bit less stress. And so let's dive into it. I think when we're realizing that we're overconsuming, it's pretty obvious what we want as a solution. We want to save some money, we want to have less stress and more time. Maybe also less clutter, less regret, impulse purchasing that we don't really understand a week later. But I think the overall long-term benefits are really the saved money, the extra time because you're not searching and buying and decluttering and managing, and just decreased stress because you're more in control of your wishes, your feelings, your dopamine. You have less distractions going on in your life, and you're more intentional when it comes to your resources. I know as people, we are really different, and depending on how we work, how our brains work, different things might work better or not as well. But I think in general, it's really important that the first step, as always, is realizing that there's a problem, realizing that we want to change something. So realizing we're overconsuming, we're giving away our money to big corporations that try to advertise stuff to us that we maybe don't even need. They are doing unsustainable stuff. We do not want to support them because they're not supporting us. And so we want to change something. And it's maybe already a little bit obvious, but I think the second thing is also to know why. Why do you want to buy less? Because buying less usually is a bit hard. If we're used to overconsumption and we are living in a world that is advertising to us, where the people around us are also buying a bunch of stuff, it's a bit hard to get used to buy less. Because first, that actually does mean less dopamine hits. It means maybe being frustrated because you want to buy something, but you're not allowing it to yourself. Maybe you even need to explain to friends that want to go shopping with you or that expect you to buy stuff. And also, as I said, advertisements. The whole world is telling you that you need to buy things that you now do not want to buy. So you need some strength to hold back the spending, to make the decision to not buy things. And I think that is a lot easier if we have a reason to do that. And of course, your reason can be just to save money. That's a pretty obvious one and it's a good one, but maybe you need a bit more. And there I really think it's a good idea to reflect a bit, maybe even write it down, set goals, make it more specific so that you just know what you're getting instead of the stuff that you would usually buy. Examples could be saving up to travel. That's also dopamine, that's also fun, that's also something we want to do, but it's not stuff that ends up in our apartments. It can be paying off loans. It can be using the time we would otherwise use for scrolling to go for walks in nature. It can be to pick up a new hobby that you have in mind that you always wanted to do, or learn a new language, and designate a certain amount of time or even money to that. And just knowing that in the end, you're going to have more fun, you're going to benefit more from putting your resources into that thing instead of shopping. Because I think most of us know that if we're just kind of shopping and over consuming, it's really not making us happy in the long run. It's not that we're buying things that we're actually like getting happy from buying, but it's more so that we're randomly using shopping as a distraction or as like a cheap or not so cheap hit of dopamine that doesn't really, make our lives better. So knowing why we're doing it can really help us to stick to it and to make progress towards a life of less overconsumption. And then, of course, number 3 is setting some rules and making a plan to actually buy less. And here, instead of doing like a no-buy, cold turkey shopping ban forever, I suggest a low buy. That's what I've been doing myself for the past few years, and that's just what I think will have better chances at succeeding, will have better chances at making actual change possible, and will have better chances at actually like changing the way you think about shopping. Maybe you are one of the people that just work better with an actual shopping ban. Then of course you can try it. There are all of these things that people quit. Most people do better when it's like decreased and maybe not quit completely and things like that. But then there are always people who do better quitting cold turkey. If you want to know more specifically how my low buy works, I am gonna link you a video up here that explains that, my rules for this year. But in general, and you absolutely can have your own rules that are very different from mine, I think that a certain amount of like money or a certain number of things or certain categories should be allowed for you to buy. Also, it's good to allow replacements, but only if you need them. Like if you already still have a stock of 10 items of the one you're currently going through, then you don't need a replacement. You have to use up the remaining 9. But I think a certain amount of like flexibility. And also I think a thing that we often forget is that there will be things coming up that we haven't seen coming. So in my case, it's always that I think like, actually, I don't need anything. Like I could just say I'm not allowed to buy anything this year in 2025 because I don't need anything. And throughout the year, every single time it happens, that stuff comes up that I either need, that I need to replace, or that I just really want but haven't like anticipated at the start of the year. And because I don't want to deprive myself of things, that's not the idea, it's just to stop over consuming. I want to have this flexibility of at the beginning of the year not knowing what the year will bring, but being able in June, when I discover a new hobby or need a new piece of gear or want to try something out or really need something, to be able to then buy that. And then just an extra thing that I think is really important, and that is don't quit at the first mistake, fail, whatever. I think throughout my years of doing low buys, I've failed many times, but usually over the course of a time, if I set the rule for myself to buy 1 thing per month, and then after half a year I've already bought 9 things, it did always kind of equal out to the end of the year, and then it would have been only 12 things, or depending on how you count, things like that. I think it's a good idea to make good rules and to stick to them, because we don't want to lie to ourselves and kind of justify our purchases because our rules weren't strict enough. But also on the other hand, it will be fine. And even if you actually break a very specific rule, if you actually, fail something, over the long run, it will still be better if you just continue. You could even allow yourself 3 fails per year. I don't know, giving yourself a prize if it doesn't happen, but not beating yourself up if up to 3 times in a year you failed, you actually do break a rule. So make sure that you want to achieve and stick to your rules, but never beat yourself up, because it's your life, and it won't help if we abandon the whole idea of stopping to overconsume just because one day we slipped and we did make an impulse purchase, and yeah, it's still your whole life is ahead of you and it still makes sense to continue. Even though I think there's a lot more to say, and there are also a lot of videos on how to specifically plan your low buy, and you need to like set it up and maybe take some time, and there are tips and tricks and all these things you could do. I do want to leave it at that right now because I just more so want to give you an idea and motivate and inspire you to maybe start on that journey if you haven't already, and say you're doing it right if you have. But let me also talk a little bit about the benefits I've been experiencing during the past few years, actually living according to like low buy rules. So apart from the obvious that I mentioned in the beginning, saving money, less stress, having more time, I also thought it's really, really interesting that the opposite of what I would have thought in the beginning actually happened in a good way. So I would have thought if you refuse to buy things, if you don't allow yourself to buy things, then over a course of a certain amount of time, you would build up this list of stuff you want to buy, but you can't buy. And so if you cannot, I don't know, like complete a 1 year low buy year, then in January of the next year you would go out and buy these 5 to 100 things that you could not buy during the low buy period. The opposite happened. I mean, maybe it's not a huge surprise, because of course we sometimes want stuff that we then later on realize we don't even want, and because we weren't able to buy it, we just realize, oh, I don't actually need it, without having bought that thing. But there's an additional layer to this. I think that I just really, really learned that buying something is almost never the answer to the feeling I'm having and the craving and the when I actually want to buy something. As you know, I do allow myself to buy one thing a month, and that's actually plenty, but I do really realize more and more and more that I don't need much. And if I have this urge less and less to buy stuff, and I have this uncomfortable feeling of like, oh, this would be better when I could like buy something right now. And so doing the low buy helped me realize that I actually don't want to buy anything. I don't even want anything. It's not about the stuff. And telling this to you now, when you haven't even started, but it could be a huge motivation, right? Because in a year or two, you will be at a place where you don't even want to buy things. Then it won't require any strength to not buy things, but it will feel like the best choice and the most natural thing to do. And you will still have the benefits of saving money, having less stress, and having more time. So what could be better? Like, I'm really, really happy about that. I'm grateful I did start low buys, and I'm never going back. Because also with my like just values, and for me like logical truths of that we need to live more sustainably because this planet does not have endless resources, it's just a thing that makes sense. And so I'm a happy low buying person. The other benefit that I think was just really interesting and also kind of maybe seems contrary to what you would think is that I have more time, energy, creativity for hobbies. So on one hand, you could think most hobbies need stuff, and if you do a low buy, you can't buy things. And I definitely don't allow myself to just buy unlimited hobby gear because a hobby is a positive thing. No, I think my hobby gear should be limited too, because it also could be expensive, could add a pile of things, and could be abandoned by me 2 months later when I realize I don't actually want to do the hobby. So what happens to me over the past few years is that I got into knitting. I got back into like more of photography. I started to go outside more. I started like cold water swimming. I made a lot of friends. That's not really a hobby, but that's like an activity that is positive, and sometimes people think requires spending money. Now I'm actually looking into bookbinding, and I've done a bunch of other stuff, but it's just that these things were all kind of possible, not maybe without buying anything, but without going out and shopping for a huge amount of hobby stuff. Because I think doing a low buy allows you to kind of test if you're actually interested in it. So the way I would go about this is, if you want to start knitting and you have nothing and you want to knit something, asking friends and family if they have knitting needles and some spare yarn, looking at circular economy things you might have in your city. I'm really lucky. We have a lot of things like these. We have a shed in our neighborhood where everyone can just bring stuff they don't need anymore, and then everyone can also take stuff they might need. And I found a bunch of things like these. But giving you time and you needing to find a solution without just buying things helps you to, on one hand, determine what the things are that you really need. And then on the other hand, like really testing if you're interested in it, if you're willing to either actually buy something from the few purchases you have, or if you can invest the time and energy and find another solution. On the topic of finding our solution, I am always just really surprised by how much stuff is out there that people don't want anymore that I can actually use. Clothing swaps, the circular economy things, friends and family, using stuff I already have and repurposing it or using it again, things like that. I have not bought many things, but actually a lot more things have come into my life whenever I wanted and needed them, because I have found them on the streets, in friends' possessions, everywhere. It's interesting and it's fascinating how much stuff is out there because of overconsumption, obviously, that people don't want, that I can use and that is free to me, like public bookshelves, things like that. There's so many resources there for you for free that we just have to access. And because we're used to just buying things online, we don't even realize where they are and how to get to them. And after a certain period of exercising our low buy muscles, we learn where to get these things. And over the past few years, I found so many places where I can get things for free, spend time for free, get food for free, things like these. And that's not always the same. Like, it could be that in your city, it's really not possible to get many things for free. But I think it's a good idea to still try and see what's possible. And in many cases, it's a lot more than we would have thought. And then one really big thing that I also, maybe I would have hoped for it, but I didn't really saw it coming, and I'm really grateful for it, is that doing a low buy, stopping overconsumption, just opens up so many resources to get to know yourself better and actually like doing stuff that is important to you and living a more intentional life. For me, that just had an impact during the past few months, because I decided to delete the social media apps off my phone, intentionally spend even more time outside. I'm really, really, really considering to go absolutely sober and never like to never want to drink alcohol in my life again. It's not something I have like issues with, but it's something that I am thinking about making a definite decision about, and that I'm pretty sure is because I've had less and less distractions. Now, removing social media from my phone was removing a distraction. And this, of course, then also leads to me having even more time to think about what I want to do with my life. This can lead to some small existential crisis. And I know I'm not the only one experiencing that, but I think it's really worth it to sit in our feelings, to remove the distractions, and to be intentional of what we want to do with our resources. I mean, that goes full circle, and we're again at, well, I do not want to buy too many things. So yeah, I think you can kind of start this circle from everywhere, but I think starting at stopping overconsumption is a good place, and can kick loose a whole journey of more intentional living. And in the end, it's not about certain rules you have to follow because I follow. It's about finding what makes sense for you and making sure that you are actually in control of your resources and that you can spend your money, your time, your efforts in a way that you see fit, that you can have time to spend with loved ones, that you experience less stress, and that you have a better life, because we all deserve that. So this brings me to the end of this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever done a low buy? Are you currently doing a low buy? How do you think your consumption is right now? Whatever. I'm really interested in reading those comments, and I will also link you another video here that you can check out right now. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe also check out Patreon, because there you can get an extra podcast episode every single week. And otherwise, I hope to see you here in my next video, or, somewhere else. Goodbye.